The weight of impossible choice. Ashna Hayes pressed her forehead against the cool tar wall of the hospital staff bathroom, fighting back tears that threatened to overwhelm her carefully maintained composure. The notification on her phone screen glowed with cruel indifference. Final notice: $28,000 in student loans, $7,500 in credit card debt from her father's, rehabilitation costs, and rent due in 3 days. Her reflection in the mirror showed dark circles under hazel eyes, hair escaping from her ponytail, and the exhaustion of someone running a race with no finish line in sight. She straightened her pale blue scrubs and returned to the chaos of Cedar Grove Medical Center's emergency department. 16 hours into a double shift, her feet ached with every step, but she couldn't afford to refuse overtime. The irony wasn't lost on her that she worked in a place dedicated to healing, while she slowly crumbled under financial strain. An evening of contrast. The Sapphire Charity Gala at the Grand Bellevue Hotel was a universe away from Sienna's reality. She had volunteered for catering duty because it paid double her normal hourly rate, money she desperately needed. The ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers that cast rainbow prisms across marble floors. Women glided past in designer gowns worth more than Sienna earned in 6 months, their laughter floating on air perfumed with expensive cologne and privilege. Sienna moved through the crowd with practiced invisibility, refilling wine glasses and clearing plates, while conversations about yacht vacations and art acquisitions swirled around her. She had become expert at being present yet unseen, a shadow among the illuminated elite. Near the grand piano, raised voices cut through the ambient music. A striking woman with auburn hair styled in an elaborate updo was confronting a man whose back was to Sienna. The woman's emerald dress shimmered with anger as her voice rose sharp enough to turn heads. 3 years, Vincent. 3 years of your emotional unavailability, your obsessive work schedule, your complete inability to let anyone matter. You're a brilliant surgeon, but you're a hollow human being. The man turned slightly, and Sienna recognized Dr. Vincent Ashford immediately. His reputation preceded him throughout Cedar Grove Medical Center. Youngest chief of cardiothoracic surgery in the hospital's history, innovative, demanding, and reportedly as warm as the surgical steel he wielded with such precision. The shattering moment Vincent's voice was controlled, each word precise as a scalpel cut. Then you're free to find someone who meets your emotional requirements, Celeste. I won't keep you from happiness. Celeste's hand flew toward his face, but Vincent caught her wrist with reflexes honed in operating rooms. Don't make a scene, he said quietly, releasing her. You deserve better than this public display. Celeste swept away, leaving Vincent standing alone as whispers rippled through the assembled guests like wind through wheat. Sienna tried to navigate around the aftermath, balancing a tray laden with champagne flutes, but her heel caught on the edge of a carpet seam. Time fractured into slow motion. The tray tilted, glasses sliding in a crystalline avalanche. Champagne arced through the air, catching chandelier light like liquid gold. The crash of shattering glass echoed through the suddenly silent ballroom with the finality of a judge's gavel. Every eye turned toward Sienna. Heat flooded her cheeks as she dropped to her knees, hands shaking as she tried desperately to gather broken shards. Blood welled from a cut on her palm, mixing with spilled champagne on pristine marble. Stop. The command was quiet, but absolute. A hand appeared in her field of vision, extended in offer. The staff will handle this. Come with me. An impossible proposition. Vint led her to a private study off the main corridor, closing the door against the gala's noise. The room was all dark wood and leather, smelling of old books and expensive whiskey. Sienna stood awkwardly, cradling her bleeding hand, waiting for termination or lecture. What's your name? Vincent asked, leaning against a massive desk. Sienna Hayes. I'm so sorry about the glasses. I'll find a way to pay for the damage. You work in the cardiac intensive care unit. Night shift. Your patients consistently rate you highest in satisfaction surveys. It wasn't a question. He had noticed her before, filed away information with the same systematic precision he applied to everything. Sienna blinked, confused by this unexpected turn. I don't understand what this has to do with ... I have a problem, Vincent interrupted, studying her with intensity that made her feel like a specimen under examination. The hospital board believes my personal life reflects poorly on the institution. They want stability, evidence that I can maintain functional relationships. They've made renewal of my contract contingent on demonstrating this capability. I'm sorry, but why are you telling me this? Vincent moved closer, his grey eyes sharp as winter sky. I need someone to play the role of my partner. 6 months, long enough to satisfy the board and secure my position. In exchange, I'll clear your student loan debt, pay off your father's medical bills, and provide you with enough monthly income to quit your second job and actually sleep occasionally. Sienna's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. The world tilted sideways. How do you possibly know about my debts? I make it my business to understand the people who work in my hospital, Vincent said. You need money desperately. I need a convincing partner who won't develop unrealistic romantic expectations. We both get what we need. It's a practical solution to mutual problems. The edge of decision offer hung between them, impossible and precisely what Sienna needed. She thought of her father, still weak from his stroke, unable to work. She thought of collection agency calls, sleepless nights calculating which utilities she could delay paying. She thought of the crushing exhaustion that had become her constant companion. This is insane, she whispered. This is practical, Vincent corrected, pulling a business card from his jacket. I'm offering you financial freedom. All you have to do is attend events with me, appear affectionate in public, and maintain the illusion for 6 months. Then we part ways, and you walk away debt-free with enough money to build whatever future you choose. He held out the card. You have 24 hours to decide. Sienna took it with numb fingers. The embossed lettering seemed to shimmer. Dr. Vincent Ashford, cardiothoracic surgery. Why me? The question escaped barely above a whisper. Vincent's expression softened fractionally. Because when Celeste confronted me in front of 300 people, you were the only person who looked at me with compassion instead of judgment. You have genuine kindness, Sienna Hayes. That can't be purchased, and it's exactly what I need people to see. He opened the door, returning them to the world of music and clinking glasses. 24 hours, he repeated, and disappeared into the crowd. Sienna stood alone, the card burning in her palm like a promise and a threat. Outside, the party continued, oblivious to the fact that her entire existence had just pivoted on an axis she hadn't known existed. She had 24 hours to decide if she was brave enough or desperate enough to accept the most dangerous proposition of her life. Crossing the threshold, Sienna stood in the lobby of Ashford Tower, her single battered suitcase looking pathetically inadequate beside the gleaming marble and polished brass. She had called Vincent 17 hours after his proposition, her voice steadier than her trembling hands deserved. The contract had arrived by courier within 90 minutes, 14 pages of legal terminology that essentially meant for 6 months. She would belong to him in every way except the one that truly mattered. The private elevator to the 48th floor felt like a journey to another dimension. When the doors opened directly into Vincent's penthouse, Sienna understood exactly how vast the chasm between their worlds truly was. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city sprawling below like a carpet of stars. Everything was clean lines, neutral tones, and expensive minimalism. Beautiful, sophisticated, and completely devoid of warmth. Your bedroom is the second door on the left. Vincent emerged from what appeared to be a home office, dressed in charcoal slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Seeing him outside the hospital context felt surreal, intimate in a way that made her pulse quicken. We need to establish parameters, he continued, gesturing toward the living room. The rules of engagement. He sat on opposite ends of a leather sofa, careful distance maintained. Vincent had prepared a list, because of course he had. His need for control extended to every aspect of his existence. Public displays of affection are necessary, but will be limited to hand-holding, brief kisses, and appropriate touching. In private, we maintain separate living spaces. You're free to come and go as you please, but I require notification of your schedule for coordination purposes. We'll attend to 3 events weekly, primarily hospital functions and board dinners. Sienna listened, her stomach churning with a mixture of anxiety and something she refused to identify as anticipation. And what about my actual life? My job, my friends? Keep your position if you wish, though the stipend makes employment unnecessary. As for friends, you may tell them we're dating, but the financial arrangement remains strictly confidential. That's explicitly stated in the contract. The contract? Sienna looked around the immaculate apartment. When does this performance begin? Vincent checked his watch with clinical precision. Tonight, the hospital board is hosting a dinner in 2.5 hours. Appropriate attire has been delivered to your room. The first performance dress was deep burgundy silk that draped elegantly across her frame, transforming her body into something she barely recognized. A stylist Vincent had hired appeared to style her hair into soft waves and apply makeup that enhanced rather than masked. When Sienna emerged from her bedroom, Vincent was waiting in the foyer, adjusting his cufflinks. He went completely still when he saw her. For 3 heartbeats, his carefully controlled expression cracked, revealing something raw and unguarded that made her breath catch. "You look stunning," he said quietly, and the sincerity in his voice felt dangerously real. In the car, Vincent briefed her with the efficiency of a military strategist. "Dr. Patricia Morrison is the board chair. She's perceptive and will probe for inconsistencies. Her husband Gregory is affable but observant. Focus on appearing comfortable with physical proximity. Laugh at my attempts at humor, even if they're unsuccessful. Do you make jokes?" Sienna asked, surprising herself with the playfulness in her tone. The corner of Vincent's mouth twitched almost imperceptibly. "Rarely, which is why your performance will be crucial." Under scrutiny, dinner was an entrance test. Sienna smiled until her cheeks ached, answered questions about their relationship with the rehearsed story Vincent had constructed, and tried not to flinch every time he touched her, his hand resting on the small of her back as they entered, his fingers lacing through hers under the table. The casual way he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, each touch sent electricity racing through her nervous system, her body betraying the clinical nature of their arrangement. Dr. Morrison watched them with the focused attention of a scientist studying an intriguing specimen. "You two seem remarkably comfortable together," she observed over dessert, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "How long did you say you've been seeing each other?" 4 months, Vincent answered smoothly, his thumb tracing absent circles on Sienna's hand. "Though it feels considerably longer. Sienna has a way of making time feel irrelevant." He looked at her as he said it, and the intensity in those grey eyes made her forget to breathe. She reminded herself forcefully that this was acting, nothing more than a convincing performance. Cracks in the armor back at the penthouse. Sienna kicked off her heels with a groan of relief, her feet screaming gratitude. "How did I do?" "Convincingly," Vincent said, loosening his tie with movements that seemed almost weary. "Dr. Morrison will report to the board that I'm sufficiently reformed and domesticated." "Is that what I am? Your domestication project?" The words came out sharper than intended. Vincent paused, something flickering across his features. "I didn't mean it that way." Sienna softened, recognizing her own defensiveness. "I know. I'm sorry. This whole situation is just strange. Playing house with someone who's essentially my employer. It becomes easier," Vincent said, moving toward his office before stopping mid-stride. "Thank you, Sienna, for tonight. You're exceptional." The compliment warmed her more than it should have, settling into her chest like glowing embers. The unexpected connection weeks blurred together in a succession of events, each one requiring them to play their roles with increasing familiarity. Sienna found herself learning Vincent's patterns and preferences, how he took his coffee, black with exactly 1 sugar cube, his tendency to work until 3 in the morning when a surgery troubled him, the way his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly when he was stressed, a tell only someone watching closely would notice. One night, she found him sitting in the darkened living room, staring out at the city lights with an expression of such profound sadness that her heart constricted. "Can't sleep?" she asked softly, padding into the room in her pajamas. He didn't turn around. "Tomorrow marks the anniversary of my brother's death, Christopher. He was 12 when he died of congenital heart disease. It's why I became a cardiac surgeon." Sienna's heart broke at the raw pain threading through his controlled voice. Without conscious thought, she crossed the room and settled beside him on the sofa. "Tell me about him," and he did. For 4 hours, Vincent talked about his younger brother, Christopher's infectious laugh, his courage through endless surgeries, his absolute faith that his big brother would somehow save him. "But I couldn't," he whispered into the darkness. "I was 19, helpless, forced to watch him deteriorate. I vowed I would never be helpless again. I would learn to save every child I could." Sienna reached out and took his hand, threading her fingers through his. "Is that why you're so controlled? So you never have to feel that powerless again?" Vincent's fingers tightened around hers with surprising strength. "Yes, control is the only armor I have against chaos." They sat in silence, hands clasped, watching the city transform from night into dawn. Something fundamental shifted between them in those quiet hours, something that transcended contracts and performances. It was authentic and terrifying, a connection neither had anticipated or known how to navigate. The jealous storm their fragile equilibrium shattered at a medical conference 3 weeks later. Sienna waited at the hotel bar while Vincent participated in a panel discussion, sipping sparkling water and reviewing emails. Celeste materialized like a vengeful spirit, sliding onto the adjacent bar stool with predatory grace, still playing house with Vincent. She purred, her voice honeyed with malice. "I give it another 6 weeks before he grows bored. He always does. It's his pattern. Our relationship is none of your concern," Sienna said evenly, refusing to take the bait. "Oh, sweetheart." Celeste laughed, the sound cruel and crystalline. "You actually believe it's real, don't you? Let me educate you about Vincent Ashford. He doesn't love. He collects. You're just the latest acquisition, a project to prove something to himself. When he's satisfied his curiosity, you'll be discarded like all the others." The words hit their mark with precision, planting seeds of doubt that Sienna couldn't quite shake. When Vincent appeared moments later, Celeste vanished into the crowd like smoke, leaving only poison in her wake. The moment of truth at a hospital fundraiser the following week. An elderly donor had too much champagne and collapsed near the silent auction tables. Vincent was across the ballroom, but Sienna's nursing instincts activated immediately. She was beside the man in seconds, checking his pulse, loosening his collar, calling for help, her training overriding everything else. Vincent reached them moments later, his medical authority radiating outward. Together, they stabilized the donor until paramedics arrived, working in perfect synchronization, anticipating each other's movements with uncanny precision. In the chaos of emergency response, working side by side with seamless coordination, Sienna realized something that stopped her heart mid-beat. This wasn't just attraction or gratitude or the comfort of familiarity. She had fallen completely, irrevocably in love with him, with his brilliant mind and hidden kindness, with his vulnerability shown only to her in darkness, with the man behind the carefully constructed walls. She loved him, and that was precisely what she had promised herself wouldn't happen. The contract explicitly forbade emotional attachment, and she had shattered that clause completely. The shadow of truth. Sienna stood on Vincent's balcony 3 months after accepting his proposition, the city spreading beneath her like a constellation of broken promises. The night air was cool against her skin, but she barely felt it. Inside, she could hear Vincent on a conference call, his voice carrying that clinical precision he wielded like armor against the world. She had memorized every inflection of that voice, every subtle shift in tone. She knew when he was exhausted, stressed, or hiding pain behind professional detachment. She knew him in ways the contract had never intended, in ways that terrified her with their intimacy. The discovery revelation came by accident, as truth often does. Sienna had gone to Cedar Grove Medical Center to deliver Vincent's forgotten tablet before his afternoon surgery. The pediatric cardiology wing was on her route, and she paused when she heard a familiar voice reading aloud with unexpected gentleness through the window of a private room. She saw Vincent sitting beside a small boy's bed, a picture book in his hands. His expression was transformed, soft and unguarded, filled with tenderness that made her throat tighten with emotion. A nurse Sienna recognized from the ICU approached quietly. "Dr. Ashford comes every Tuesday and Thursday," she explained in hushed tones. "Has for 6 years. He treats pediatric cardiac patients pro bono, pays for surgeries when families can't afford them. The children adore him. He's saving lives the board will never know about." "Why doesn't anyone know?" Sienna asked, stunned by this revelation. "He forbids us from discussing it. Says if the hospital knew, they'd exploit it for publicity. He wants to help these kids, not use them for good press." Sienna watched Vincent close the book, gently tucking the blanket around the sleeping child with infinite care. This was who he truly was beneath the cold exterior. A man still trying to save his brother by saving every child he encountered, pouring his grief into acts of quiet heroism, confronting reality. That night, Sienna waited for Vincent in the living room. When he arrived home around midnight, exhausted from a complicated surgery, she was sitting in darkness. Her resolve crystallized. "We need to talk," she said softly. Vincent's expression shuttered immediately, walls slamming into place. "If this concerns Celeste at the conference, I've already addressed the situation with her directly. It's not about Celeste." Sienna stood, her heart hammering against her ribs. "I saw you today at the pediatric wing. I know what you've been doing for those children." Vincent went absolutely still, every muscle tensing. "Sienna, that's not part of our arrangement. It's not relevant to our contract." "No, it's not," she agreed, moving closer. "Just like falling in love with you wasn't part of our arrangement either. But it happened anyway." The words hung between them, impossible to retract. Vincent's carefully controlled expression cracked, revealing shock, fear, and something that looked dangerously like hope struggling against disbelief. "You can't," he whispered, his voice breaking on the words. "The contract specifically prohibits emotional attachment. We agreed to keep this professional." "Breaking the contract," Sienna said, tears streaming down her face unchecked. "I'm in love with you, Vincent. With your brilliant mind and your hidden kindness. With the way you read stories to sick children because you still miss your brother. I'm in love with the man who pretends not to care but cares more deeply than anyone I've ever known." Vincent stared at her, his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. "I can't give you what you want," he said, his voice raw with pain. "I don't know how to love properly. Celeste was right about me. I'm emotionally incapable of normal relationships." "That's a lie you tell yourself for protection," Sienna said, stepping closer and placing her hand over his heart. "You love those children. You loved Christopher. You're terrified of loving me because you're afraid of losing someone again." "But Vincent, I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." The walls come down. Vincent's hands came up to frame her face, trembling with uncharacteristic vulnerability. "Of course I'm afraid, Sienna. You've become everything I didn't know I needed. Every morning, I wake up hoping you'll still be here. Every event, I find myself watching you, forgetting entirely that it's supposed to be performance. I broke my own rules the moment you looked at me with compassion instead of judgment." "Then stop hiding," Sienna pleaded. "Stop pretending this is just a transaction. Be honest with me, with yourself." Vincent closed his eyes, and when he opened them, the ice had melted completely, revealing depths of emotion that took her breath away. "I love you," he said, the words rough and unpracticed. "I'm terrified and completely unprepared for this, but I love you. I think I have since you crashed those champagne glasses and looked at me like I was human instead of a cold machine." He kissed her then, and it was nothing like their staged performances for audiences. This kiss was honest, desperate, filled with months of restrained emotion, finally breaking free. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard, foreheads pressed together, Burning the contract, Vincent pulled the contract from his safe, the document that had brought them together under false pretenses. Without hesitation, he held it over a candle flame until the pages caught fire. They watched it burn together, the legal words turning to ash, smoke carrying away the artifice that had defined their relationship. "So where does this leave us?" Sienna asked, a hand in his, watching the last corner curl into blackness. Terrified, Vincent admitted honestly, but willing to try. "No contracts, no performances, no predetermined endpoints, just us figuring this out together, making mistakes, learning as we go." "I'm going to need you to actually communicate your feelings," Sienna warned, half laughing through tears. "No more hiding behind clinical detachment when emotions get difficult." Vincent smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face into something almost unrecognizable. "I'm going to need you to be patient with me. I'm not naturally good at this vulnerability thing. We'll learn together," Sienna promised. 6 months later, the hospital garden was in full bloom. Roses climbing trellises in explosions of crimson and gold. Sienna sat on a wooden bench, watching Vincent play catch with Timothy, an 8-year-old recovering from his 4th cardiac surgery. The boy's laughter rang out pure and joyful, music against the afternoon air. Vincent caught her watching and walked over, pressing a kiss to her forehead with casual affection that still made her heart skip. "What are you thinking about?" "How far we've come," Sienna said softly. "Remember when you hired me to fake a relationship with clinical precision?" "Worst business decision I ever made," Vincent teased, his eyes warm. "Completely backfired. I ended up actually falling in love. Terrible outcome from a logical standpoint. Absolutely catastrophic," Sienna agreed, laughing. Vincent knelt in front of her, suddenly serious. From his pocket, he pulled a small velvet box, his hands steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "I did this all wrong the first time. Contract, transaction, emotional walls everywhere. So I'd like to try again, properly this time." He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant ring that caught the sunlight. "Sienna Hayes, will you marry me? For real this time. No contracts, no conditions, no predetermined endpoints. Just me, loving you with everything I have and learning every day how to do it better." Tears streamed down Sienna's face. "Yes, 1,000 times yes," as he slipped the ring onto her finger. Timothy's voice called out with childish directness, "Dr. Ashford, are you guys getting married?" "We are," Vincent called back, his arm around Sienna, his smile unguarded and genuine. "About time," Timothy declared with the wisdom of youth. "Everyone knew you were in love ages ago." Epilogue. The greatest risk. Vincent laughed, the sound free and unguarded, echoing across the garden. He pulled Sienna close, and she rested her head against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong beneath her ear. That miraculous rhythm she'd help him learn to share. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair, "for refusing to accept the walls I built, for seeing who I really was beneath the armor." "Thank you," Sienna replied, "for showing me that the best love stories are the ones that start with impossible propositions and end with choosing each other every single day." They sat together in the garden, surrounded by blooming roses and the laughter of children, whose hearts Vincent had mended. What had begun as a desperate transaction, a clinical arrangement between two people protecting themselves from pain, had transformed into something neither could have predicted: a love built on honesty, vulnerability, and the courage to let someone past every defense. The contract was ash, scattered by wind and forgotten. The love was real, growing stronger with each honest moment, each shared vulnerability, each choice to be brave enough to stay. And for the first time in his life, Dr. Vincent Ashford understood that the greatest risk was also the greatest reward. Opening your heart meant risking everything, but it was the only way to gain anything worth having.